All right, so we'll just let everybody join as they join. So welcome. If you don't know me, I'm Kelley, plant-based kitchenista. So we do these classes every 2 weeks, and they're always at the same time. So if you're on my meetup site, stay on there. We advertise everything that we do. We also have a class coming up. We just did one on Monday, but we have one coming up on the 16th. That's going to be with the Denver Public Libraries. So that one's going to be some enchiladas, a little bit different. It's not going to be Thanksgiving food. So keep watching, and like I said, we'll keep advertising and doing more classes and all kinds of things. So I'll go ahead and let Jerry introduce himself really quick.
Okay, hold on.
Don't trip over everything.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Glad to see y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm Jerry Capaz, for those who don't know me.
Hi, Jerry.
Plant-based nutritionist. I do have a private practice, and I just try to help people transition to a whole food plant-based diet. We've been plant-based now over 13 years, now going on 14. And I did it for health reasons, heart disease and all that. So it's typical stories. You hear it all the time, reverse heart disease, and I get off all the meds, lose weight, and it just works. But I mentioned that I am having some nutrition classes coming up. I have one Monday. It's at 11 a.m. If you go to our meetup site, you can go there. It's about an hour and 15-minute class. And first one's going to be more of an introduction to the Start Solution, because I'm an instructor for Dr. John McDougall's Start Solution program. So I teach his program, and he's been doing this for over 40 years, obviously helping patients get well. But it's more getting familiar with Start Solution. Potatoes aren't going to make you fat. And plus I'll debunk all the myths of the protein, calcium, all that stuff. And some environmental stuff. It's just more information how to be plant-based and thrive in it. So if you want to go to meetup site, you can RSVP there. It's free. And I'm going to have a couple more coming up. Probably one on diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and the causes, and how a plant-based diet does reverse it and prevent it. So yeah, just keep your eyes open there. I'll be sending through meetup, and any other questions, I'll just be behind the camera and watch you cook and eat food later. So thanks.
That's his favorite thing, is to eat the food. All right, so we are going to be making today, we're making a Thanksgiving loaf. We're also making, and I'll tell you a little bit about that when we get to that, we're making sesame sweet potatoes, which are really good. Just a different way to make sweet potatoes, because I know everybody kind of, when you get going and you eat sweet potatoes a lot, especially if you bake them, this is another way to actually make them. Then we're going to make a gravy, because I'm going to be plating things like a stack. So when it's one of those things, if you have, just a few family members over, or just doing it for your family, I'll show you how to put it together and stuff where it just looks beautiful. Because food is all about what you see. It's like eye candy, and when you see it, you're like, wow, that looks good. You're going to eat it. I'll also do mashed potatoes, because you've got sweet potatoes, you got mashed potatoes. The mashed potatoes will be on the stack. Then I did some caramelized onions, and then we're going to do a little bit of decoration on top. So we're going to get started. So I'm going to get the Thanksgiving loaf and the sesame sweet potatoes going really quick. Also, if you have any questions, please go ahead and just put them into the chat. Jerry signals me in front of the camera. He just lets me know that there's questions in there, so I'll make sure I answer them, and ask any question you like. I'll answer any question at all. All right, so let's get with the Thanksgiving loaf. I'm going to jump around, so if you're type A, sorry, because I'm gonna jump around in recipes, because I need to get 2 things in the oven, and then the other things can kind of follow a little bit. So bear with me. So let me get started here. So I'm going to use a little bit of vegetable broth. We don't saute anything with oil. We, of course, use vegetable broth, water, or we use white wine. The only time that we use white wine usually is, and we just use it Franzi in a box. We do, like if it's a tomato sauces, gnocchi sauces, or something like that. So otherwise, pretty much vegetable broth and water. One thing that you can think about with vegetable broth, if you're going to be sauteing for a long time, you can actually cut the vegetable broth in half. So if it says like a 1/4 cup of vegetable broth, you could do like 1/8 of vegetable broth and 1/8 of water, and then it holds a lot longer. It doesn't burn off as fast. But since I'm standing here, I'm just going to use the full vegetable broth. Okay, so we've got garlic. So we're going to get garlic in there. So I'm actually going to start the vegetables just because I need them to cook. So I forgot to grab out my spoons. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of spoons, because when I make things up in these little containers, a lot of times the garlic, etc., will stick. We don't want that to happen. All right. So I'm going to actually, you can do this all separate, but you can also make this very easy on yourself and put all the vegetables in one pot. So instead of having the mushrooms, pulling those out, putting in your celery and your garlic and your onions, you can actually throw it on one pot and cook it all together. Because the thing about when you're making this Thanksgiving loaf, or even if it's a meatloaf, you are actually grinding it all up with the food processor. So it really doesn't matter because everything gets all mixed up. So that's what I'm saying. Make it easy for yourself. Put all the vegetables together, and then in a different pot, cook your brown rice and your lentils together, because it all gets blended up and nobody's going to know the difference. So I always am big about tips and tricks to make your life easy. So, all right, so we've got that garlic going in there. So then we've got the onion. So we've got 1 medium onion. You could use red, yellow, or white. I was gonna say orange, which no, don't have orange, but red, yellow, white, whatever. If you don't like the really onion flavor, you could use shallots. Or if you bought some scallions and you wanted to use those up, you could use those up too. Because sometimes scallions don't last that long in your refrigerator. So I'm just gonna add those in, use the same spoon. All right, can you substitute the mushrooms with something else? Yes, eggplant would be a good one. So that one, because it has, it has that kind of chewy characteristic. That's what you're looking for, is something that gives, where it binds everything together. So if you like eggplant, that would actually work really well. Same thing, just I would peel your eggplant, chop it up, and then just put it in with everything else and cook it together. Great question. All right, portobello mushrooms. I agree with you. So Vicki, I am not a mushroom fan at all. I won't eat them like if they're raw or on pizzas or anything like that. But as long as it's mixed in something like this and I grind it up, and I don't know it's even though I know it, but I'm not tasting or having the chew of mushrooms, I'm good. So, all right, so I have those mushrooms in. That's just 2 portobello mushrooms, just chopped them up. The one thing that most people ask, I left the gills in. So the gills are the dark brown part. I left them in because it doesn't matter on this one. Gills are almost like food coloring. And so what it does is it makes things darker, but since you're making more of like a meatloaf or a Thanksgiving loaf, having the dark brown color, all good. But if you don't, like the gills just kind of make it go, you can just scrape them out with a spoon. Okay, so mushrooms, not a fan of eggplant either. Okay, but if you grind them up, the good thing is that you'll see this, when you grind it up, you're not going to have that taste or that chew, because a lot of times mushrooms and eggplant are about that mouth feel. So you wouldn't have any one of those by the time you get this recipe done. So watch and then let me know what you think. All right, mushrooms in there. We got 2 stalks of celery. Put those in. I just do, small dice. You can do a little bit bigger dice, but think about that these are going to go in a food processor. So the smaller of the pieces that you have, the better, because then you don't have to worry about keep opening your food processor, stirring it up, keep opening the food processor. And then what I found sometimes is when you do like big pieces of carrots, you'll get everything and you'll dump it into a bowl to mix it up, and you'll have big chunks of carrots that are buried towards the bottom of your food processor. So the smaller the pieces, the better. And what you could do is you can buy things that are already chopped up, like your carrots and your celery, or you could use like one of those onion vidalia things, and then just put your carrots and onions in there and just chop them, and you get those little small, like the dices that look like this, which is really nice. So that's all going. So this recipe can actually be made into a meatloaf. So that is a phenomenal meatloaf, because there's nothing better than having, especially like in the wintertime, having meatloaf sandwiches. So if you're interested in having it, what you would do, because you're going to be putting things like Grey Poupon, Worcestershire sauce, all those kind of things in it. If you're interested in having the actual meatloaf recipe, and then it's like a smoky tomato sauce, let me know and I can give you the ingredients to make that different. You can freeze this also, because that's usually a question. You can freeze both of these, and they freeze both really well. So I have actually made them, just the regular loaves, and I've wrapped them in like plastic wrap and then put them into a Ziploc bag to freeze them. I've also put them into little not muffin tins, but little bread tins. And I've made little meatloaves like this that are about this tall, and I've wrapped them up and put them in the freezer. And then that way I can just pull them out and put them in the oven to cook them. So easy way to do that. So that's all cooking. So we've got the other thing that I already did. So like I told you, I did the lentils and brown rice. I mean, it's not very pretty. It's just, kind of a brown blob of color. But this is what your binder is. So you've got brown rice and lentils. If, you can do, other type of rices if you want to. So you don't have to just do brown rice. You could do basmati. You could use the red lentils. But your colors and stuff are pretty much going to look like this after it's done. So I already cooked those ahead of time because I figured you probably didn't want to watch that boil for 20 minutes. All right. Okay, so these are cooking. That is good. So the sweet potatoes. I'm gonna get those going. So I cut the sweet potatoes up about an hour ago and I just put them in cold water. So, and I also did the same thing. Last night I cut up my regular mashed potatoes and I did just little chunks and stuff and I put those in cold water. But when I put the cold water over the mashed or the potatoes, the russet potatoes, I actually dumped it out about 4 times to get a lot of that starch out and then put the cold water, wrapped it in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge. It actually lasted all last night and today without getting brown or getting that, you know, kind of the rusty color. So that actually turned out really well. Did you cook them separate? Did I cook what separate? Oh, the rice and lentils. No, I actually cooked the rice and lentils together. So this is 1 pot. So I just put in the half a cup. You know, I actually do. So if you say a half a cup of cooked, you're doing a 1/4 cup of dry. And if you need a cup of cooked lentils, you're going to do a half a cup of dry. So do half, and that'll actually, it's a little bit more, but it gives you the measurements. But I just threw them in 1 pot with water, watched it, and I just let them cook together. So that's why you get this kind of mixture that looks exactly like that, all cooked together. Make it easy on yourself and cook things together, especially with this loaf, because it all goes together in the food processor and it's all mixed up with everything that you're looking to do. So, yep. So same thing, you're just, you know, on this one, here's just all the vegetables and the garlic and everything cooking together. So you just kind of cook them and just get them where they're soft because they all get blended. So the other thing too, I would say that if you don't like mushrooms, I'm just thinking about what your question was, you don't like mushrooms and you don't like eggplant, it does, like I said, it gets mixed up, but leave it out. That would be another thing because you still have the binders of the lentils and the brown rice. So you're still going to be okay. It's not really going to make that big of a difference in the texture, the feel, or anything else. All right, so we have got the sweet potatoes. So we talked about their peel, and I did these about 2 hours ago. Same thing, rinsed them about 2 or 3 times, and then just left them in cold water. So I did these little kind of long kind of spears. They're about 3 inches long, give or take, and about 1 inch wide. You can make them chunks, you can make them circles. It's up to you. This was just, because we were doing something a bit different. I just thought, looks kind of pretty. So it almost looks like those square little carrots that you get. So all I did was take a sweet potato like this, of course, peeled it. And then just move this, make sure you guys can see. All I did was say, if I've got the other piece of the sweet potato, I just cut it straight in half. So boom, like that. And then you get these pieces like this. And then what you're going to do is to make it easy, you always like flat edges. So just cut it in half again. And then you've got this other piece here. You don't want it that thick. So just take off the edges like this. Boom. So now you've got 4 pieces. And then it's like that. So it's just a nice flat piece. Then you're going to take it and then just cut it lengthwise like that. So that piece right there became 4 pieces. Just do real quick. You can make them as thick or as thin as you want. You could dice them if you wanted to do more diced. Any of things like this. Or you could actually mash them. So you could cook them up, mash them, and then put the flavorings on them. So that would be a whole nother way that you could do these. So I'm just giving you a different way to do the sweet potatoes, but you could add pretty much all these flavors in mashed, boiled, sauteed, anything else. You have to peel them. Yes, I peeled them. You don't have to if you don't want to. I just did it for the look and feel of this, but I would say normally when Jerry, look at you say if it was Jerry and I for Thanksgiving, I would probably just scrub it all down because most of the skins are thin, and then I would just slice it up and leave the peels on. So, but every once in a while, I will give you a tip. Every once in a while, when you're doing something like this and you're kind of like if you're in the pan and you're sauteing them or something, every once in a while you'll get these little black dots from the skin. And it's just like an oxidation. It's not bad or anything, but it just every once in a while just color just a little bit when you have the skins on. All right, so we've got those in. So let me just drain them really quick because I don't need the water. But like I said, the cool thing is you could cut up the potatoes because most of the time what ends up happening is we spend hours and hours and hours in the kitchen for Thanksgiving and getting rid of the food, and then you eat it and it feels like it gets eaten in like 15, 20 minutes. And then you're just like, well, where did it all go? You could cut these up, the potatoes up, you could cut the mashed potatoes up, just like I said, rinse them 2 or 3 times and then put them in the fridge with the cold water, and then you get that nice look and feel. Can I leave out the brown sugar to make them this way? Yes, you can. Yep, you can leave out the brown sugar. You could put some other type of flavor. You could use like a date paste if you wanted to. So a date paste is just dates with water mixed up that have been soaked. So that's another way that you could actually sweeten them up. Or if you don't want, because sweet potatoes can be very sweet anyway, don't put any brown sugar at all. Yes, that is, like I said, I'm giving you kind of the base recipes, but feel free to change them up a little bit. All right, so we're gonna add, so I've got 1 thing I need to add. Let me get all the flavorings. This is cooking nicely. All right, so in a bowl, I've got, so if I follow the thing, I've got the brown sugar. I kind of left the plastic on because you know how brown sugar is. It dries up really quick. Got that. Then I've got the liquid aminos, so Bragg's liquid aminos. And if you don't have aminos, you could use tamari or anything like that. Try to use the low sodium so you don't have to worry about that. Then you've got the water. Boom. And then we've got, you can add the salt if you want. And then we've got rice vinegar. So a little bit of the acid to that. So that's all mixed up together. Stir it a little bit because you want to get rid of that brown sugar. But if you didn't add it, you don't have to worry about it. You're going to see that I'm not going to add any sea salt or pepper. I always do that towards the end. Jerry's very sensitive to salt because he's so I always leave it and I always just put it on the table. Okay, mix that up really good. Spread it on there. Make sure you get all the goodies out. And we'll pull the sesame seeds out and I'll move this off because you don't need to see the dirty dishes. All right, and then just stir them up. Doesn't look like much, but it gives a really nice flavor. Okay, then just grab a baking dish. You could also put this on parchment paper and a baking sheet, and you could roast them up if you wanted to. It's pretty much the same thing, but here we go. Yummy. So just to taste, because I know you're not here to taste. Kind of a smoky, a little bit sweet, a little bit smoky sauce that's on there. Tastes really good. So then spread them out. You'll notice every once in a while you've got a little bit of brown sugar, like chunks that show up. Just spread them out because you want them spread out as much as you can because you're roasting them. All right, and then if you need to add water or anything like that, you can add water. You can add a little bit more vegetable broth if you don't have it in there. And then these are going in the oven. Voila. Quick, nice, and easy. All right, the vegetables. I'll show you what they look like really quick. They've been cooking. So that's all of them kind of sauteed down. So they're just nice and soft. So those are good to go. Normally, of course, we would actually work it a little bit and then have them cool off. But since I want to get everything into the oven, let me grab a bowl. All right. So let's do this off to the side here. All right. So the food processor. In goes your lentils and in goes your rice. This recipe, which if you're watching, watch with me, you make these ahead of time. So think about like the day before or even 2 days before when you're trying to make all these recipes, especially if you're cooking for more than just yourself. You want to make sure just like do things ahead of time. And the cool thing about doing things ahead of time, you just put plastic wrap on it, put it in your refrigerator. And then when you're ready to go, you've got all these things like the vegetables are already cooked. The lentils and the rice is already good, and then you just mix it together at the end. Or you could actually do it the day before, make everything and let it sit. Just don't put like the sauce on it, the topping stuff, but if you let it sit, then everything all, how it's like chili the next day where it tastes really good because you got all the spices and things together. So that's another idea to do too, to make life easy. All right, so I'm going to grind this up. Might be good if I plug it in first. All right, one thing I always show, and it was funny because I was watching Food Network the other day because I love that show. A gentleman he was doing a food processor in I think one of the cooking shows or something, and he needed something out of the food processor and he just dumped it. And of course the blade fell and it like splattered all over the place. So underneath here, you see there's a hole where the blade is. Put your finger in it like that. It holds the blade. So you can tip it all the different ways that you want. And then you just grab your spatula and pull out what you need. So then you don't have that blade popping out into your liquid ingredients or any other ingredients, or coming out, because I have seen somebody that, and it was actually one of my trainers and stuff actually wasn't paying attention and it fell out and she reached down and stuff and ended up slicing her finger really bad from the blade. So this just keeps it safe. All right, so that comes out. So as you can tell, it's not very pretty, but that is your lentils and your brown rice all mixed up together. So that's in there. Put the food processor back on because it's all going to go together. Watch your hand in the blades. All right, in comes your vegetables. If you have too much liquid on your vegetables, you want to drain that, because if you have too much liquid, that means you're going to have to add, like more of the panko breadcrumbs or something like that. And it's not, then it becomes a little bit more bready than what you actually want. So if you get a lot of, because your mushrooms or something were too much water, just drain it off. Make sure you got it that way. Okay. Put that there. All right. But I kind of did it all one-sided, so let me just. Just a minute, just kind of press it down a little bit. When you open the food processor, it smells really good. You've got like the celery and the carrots and the onions and everything else smell. All right. Pop it off. Put the finger in the hole. Flip it. So same thing. That's the mixture. You could keep mixing it as much as you wanted and not have the carrots showing, but because it's a Thanksgiving loaf, and usually when you do like stuffing and stuff, you see the carrots and the celery. I'm leaving a little bit of chunks in there. Not much, just enough for color. Even though by the time you get done with everything, it pretty much blends in. When you're down to that, you can pop this out and then scrape the rest. Because you want to make sure you get all the good vegetables in there. And to even make this easier too, you can buy the carrots and the celery already chopped up, but you can also buy the frozen onions, all those kind of things like that are already chopped, which is really nice. So it just makes your life a little bit easier, and you're not chopping all the things up and you're just sauteing them. All right, so just do a little mix. Just do a quick mix to it. By adding the mushrooms, and that's the one thing with the mushrooms, you're adding the mushrooms and stuff, it gives you the color because of the gill color, the brown. So it makes it look more like meat, but I've done it without the mushrooms, and I've taken the gill out and I've just used like button mushrooms instead of buying the portobello, because portobello got really expensive one time, and it still darkens up because of your lentils and your brown rice. So there is Make sure it's all mixed together because my lentils and stuff were cold and then my vegetables were warm. So there is the mixture all together. So if you look at that, you know, most people would say, well, it looks like meat. Jerry almost turned over the light. Almost lost the light. Okay, so that's ready. All right, so what we're gonna put inside of it, we've got, so just following along, we've got the stuffing mix. So what I did is, you know, in the stores and stuff, it's hard to find stuffing mix unless you get into, like a lot of times Sprouts or Whole Foods will have stuffing mix without the oils and the bad things in them. So I didn't have a chance to go to Whole Foods last night, so I just made my own. So I just took some breadcrumbs and then I just put them in on a baking sheet, and then I just kind of added some sage and some poultry seasoning and all that on them, and then just browned them up. And then what I did to make them, instead of having these big chunks, I actually just put it in the food processor really quick, hit it on pulse a couple of times so that I have more like a consistency of a panko or breadcrumb and stuff versus big chunks of bread that take a while to break down. Because the last thing I wanted to do was have it in the meatloaf and have these chunks of bread. So I just want it to be all together and have the good flavors. I actually love mushrooms, cooked mushrooms, and yes, good. Love the food processor. And it's the funny thing is these are like, you know, these are like high paid chefs and stuff. And it was like plop, oh, all over the place. So I was like, put your finger in the hole. All right, so I'm going to add part of the breadcrumbs because I'm going to play with it a little bit. And I actually had in here just a little more than a cup. If for some reason, like you put the breadcrumbs in and then it really starts to soak up, you could always add just a little bit of vegetable broth, but you want it to where it's going to form like patties. So you definitely don't want it too moist. If it gets too moist and it still seems to need more, then just add a little bit more of your breadcrumbs, or, you know, grab some panko or whatever that you would like to do. Or you could make this even different and you can add cornbread. So you could make your own cornbread and then dry out the cornbread. So just let it sit out for a day or two, you know, kind of cut it up in chunks and add cornbread in here. So then you get almost like a kind of like a Southern Thanksgiving loaf, which would be really good. All right, so that looks good. So I'm going to hold off on the rest of the breadcrumbs. All right, we've got that in there. Then I've got poultry seasoning. And I know it always kind of weird because everybody's like, oh, poultry seasoning, but it is plant-based. Of course, it's like sage and thyme and everything else. So don't worry about that. Just throw that in. And then we've got parsley. So I just didn't want to go buy a whole thing of parsley right now. So I just did the dried parsley. I keep that on hand all the time. It's all just as good. And then arrowroot powder. So that is just like cornstarch. A lot of times in stuff being plant-based, they'll say don't use cornstarch because a lot of times corn and GMO. But you can get cornstarch that's GMO-free, or you can use arrowroot, either one. This is going to be the binder. A lot of times they're used in gravy, so just add that in. All right, and then you can add your salt and pepper. So up to you. I'm going to hold off because the sauce that's on the top, the topping, is spicy and it's going to add a lot of flavor, and I'm not going to need that. Can you use, yes, you can use potato or tapioca starch. So yes, you could use any of those different ones that you want, or anything that you like to use as a binder. And a lot of times, truthfully, once you mix this up, and if it's not too moist, you don't even need either one of those either. So you could leave out the arrowroot and everything else because it will set up. There was one time and stuff that I completely just, when I was just, because I make this so much, it's one of Jerry's favorites. I make it and I forgot to put any type of arrowroot, cornstarch, or anything else in there. Didn't even know the difference. Okay, so everything's cooked in here. So do a little taste. That's good. So taste it. What I always talk about with spices, taste things. If you do the spices and I say do like a tablespoon of something, go down to like 1/8 of a teaspoon, because even with my recipes, they might be too spicy, too many things, or just the flavors aren't what you're used to or like. So always start low and then go up in spices, because if you ever go the whole amount of spices and you don't like it, you can't take it back. So start small, go up. So even when I put in there and I said 1/2 tablespoon and 1/2 of poultry seasoning, you may want to say, I'll just do like a teaspoon first. Taste it, because everything in here is cooked. Taste it, and then I keep adding a little bit more, or add more sage or thyme or something like that. But this for us, good. All right, so there's the meatloaf all mixed up. You can see it's very much thick like patties. And the reason why is because I want to form it into a loaf. So I'm going to do that right now. And I have my pan. In this, you can actually put parchment paper if you don't want it to stick. I'm just going to put it right in the pan. But for easy cleanup, parchment paper is nice to have. Say like this, I could form this into a ball right now and almost make a burger. So you could actually make this into patties versus a loaf if you wanted to do it. So I just kind of start out in bunches when I'm doing this. Just kind of form it together. And the one thing too is this recipe makes 2 huge loaves. So if you're looking to make a lot of it, let me know and I'll give you the measurements to make 2 large loaves the size that I'm making now. I cut it back to where we're only making 1 loaf. Because a lot of times and stuff, after you've had it for, a couple times and you've made some sandwiches and that type of thing, you're like, I'm done. But if you want to make 2, like I said, I'll give you the measurements and then you could freeze one. Just add the rest of this. Got to get the chunks out. All right, so there. You could put this in a bread loaf and make it that way. You don't want to make it real thick because it'll take a little bit while to heat up and stuff. But if you made it in like individual loaves, you could do that. You could make this in muffin tins. I have done that before, and it's really pretty in muffin tins because you can actually mound a little bit on the top or make it flat and then put mashed potatoes on top and make it like little individual servings. And that's really good too when you do muffin tins with this, especially if you're going to work and you want something to eat for lunch. You can just grab the little muffin tin of the meatloaf and everything else is with it. So let me wash my hands. All right. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. So I haven't made the sauce yet, but I'm going to go ahead and get it in the oven to get it to get it all warmed up and cooked. It's pretty much all cooked. It's just a matter of getting it browned. And then when the topping gets on top and stuff, then it gets a little crusty and then it's really good. So I'm going to get it in the oven to get it started. And then I'm going to add the sauce, pull it back out and add the sauce. So easy to make the day before. Wrap it back up in plastic wrap, parchment paper, put it in the fridge, all ready to go. Let's see. What do you line the muffin tins? Great question. So you can there's some muffin tins and stuff that are this brand, which is Baker's Secret, is really nice. These, I do not use any oil or anything like that. And when you put the meatloaf in them, it actually comes out really well. You might have to use just a knife a little bit or just like a spatula and just do a little side of it because every once in a while it'll go onto the side, but it pops out easy at this. Or you can use the, what do they call
silicone.
The silicone. And that's another one because when you get all those, when you get them all together and you've got the meatloaf, you can just take it over and pop them out like that. So, but the Baker's Secret have a really nice coating on them that makes things not stick. I use all my muffins and things like that in here. So that's a good brand. But yeah, silicone if you want, turn them over, pop them out. All right, so to get my sauce, we got Penny walking around. She's one of our dogs. She's loves to be underfoot because she's all about eating. So she walked in from outside and she's got like mulch hanging off one ear and yeah, she's funny. All right, so if we're gonna make the sauce, you need 1.5 cups ketchup.
Let's see her.
Do what?
They said, let's see her.
Yeah, we can grab, I'll grab her here in just 1 second. Most of the stuff is now coming off on the kitchen floor, but yeah, I'll show you real quick. I'll just get this going. All right, so I've got the ketchup. I use the Amy's organic ketchup, but you can use pretty much any flavor you want. And then I've got a cup of fresh cranberries because those are really good in the store. You can also, the one thing too is buy the cranberries now if you really like this recipe and freeze it. So you can use frozen cranberries also. And then the last thing is 1/2 a jalapeno. So just whole like that. I just cut off the end so you can get the flavors. I didn't take the seeds out. Pop it in. All right, so we will get that on the stove. That's what it looks like so far. And then I'll pull Penny up. Yum. So this is a little bit, this is more of the flavorings and stuff that you can use for more like Thanksgiving and things, but. So this is what, then I'll wash my hands. This is what Penny was walking in. This was hanging all over her, the mulch. But here you go. This is Penny. Say hi, Penny. Norwich Terrier. That's one of them. She's like, put me down. She is my chow hound. She came through us from a lady that passed about 3 years ago that passed away in the neighborhood. And so she was willed to us, which is, she's a sweetheart. We've known her for pretty much most of her life. But she is a chow hound and she is under feet all the time. Can you use dried cranberries? Yes, you could use dried cranberries. That would work too. It's probably going to be a little bit sweeter than your regular cranberries, but it still works. So, yep, dried cranberries. Yeah, she's adorable. Yeah, she's sweet. Primal now, low sugar one ketchup. Yes, okay. Yeah, so Primal now makes a low sugar one ketchup. Yep, you could do that, or you could actually make your own. So all around, around the times and stuff that we're making things, you could make your own on it. Okay. All right, so we've got number 1 done. So I kind of did my recipes in order. Number 1 we did the Thanksgiving loaf, that's in the oven. Number 2 was making sure the sesame sweet potatoes, but I kind of did that in between already and in the oven. I'll stir those here in just a few minutes. Number 3, I did the topping sauce. So once that's ready to go, then I'm going to pull the meatloaf out and I will put that on top so we can get the nice crusty. If for some reason and I'm going to add just a little bit of vegetable broth. If the sauce, the topping gets a little thick, and especially if your ketchup's a little thick, and the Amy's one that I got was thick, then just add some vegetable broth or add some water, and that'll keep it going like that. You could also, if you wanted to, you could leave the jalapeno in it. So up to you to do that. Or you could add a serrano. You could add whatever flavors you want, but those are nice flavors. You could also like dried jalapenos, because one time I had a whole bunch of jalapenos from a class, and so I came home and just dehydrated them, and then I just used the pieces and stuff and put them into the flavoring of the food, which was really good. All right, so we got number 1, number 2, number 3 done. 4, we've got mashed potatoes. So mashed potatoes, of course, I just diced them up, so I'll show just as I can. So I diced them up into small little dices because they cook a lot faster versus the big chunks. And these are I cut these yesterday, so last night, and so they're almost like 24 hours. Like I said, I rinsed them 3 times, got the starch off them off, and then put cold water, put plastic wrap, and put them in the fridge. And then just drained them, put new fresh water in there, and you can tell they look just perfect like mashed potatoes. So let me grab, and I'm going to drain them. And then otherwise, if I let it drip the whole way, Penny will be licking the drip mark the whole way. I said she is a food hound. All right. Yeah, that's exactly the starch. The starch is usually what discolors everything. So I get the starch off of that, and then that way you can store them in the refrigerator for a lot longer. And a lot of times you want to make sure you have the cold water also, because the cold water is what keeps them from oxidizing as much too. When I've always noticed, I've always had better luck when I've taken and rinsed them 2 or 3 times and then let them set in the fridge with cold water versus just the first time I put water on them and then put them in the fridge, because the water turned more of a rusty color and the potatoes started soaking it up. So this was the color 2 or 3 rinses and then the cold water. So it looks just like regular mashed potatoes. So those are ready. So then I'm actually going to move the pan here so I can watch it. That way cook a little faster there. All right, so I've got the mashed potatoes, nice little chunks. They're really soft. These, when I cut them in little chunks versus like the big chunks, my mom used to put she'd take like a potato like this big and put it in like 4 chunks. It took a lot longer. These probably took about 10, 15 minutes on the stove and they were ready to go. And then I just put it on really low and just let it set for a little bit. So grab your favorite. I use the soy. The other thing I'll show you really quick too. So remember we talked about with the sweet potatoes, you could use a date paste. So knowing that the holidays were coming up, I actually got one of the big things of there we go. One of the big things of dates at Costco. So this is probably half of it. And I just let them soak overnight in hot water. And then I just took the hot water and the dates and put them in a blender. So there is the date paste. So I just put it in a nice mason jar. And then I've been gathering stuff out. So I just made like an ooey gooey pumpkin pecan cake. And I used date paste instead of all the sugar. And I just pulled it out of here and use it. And that was the first time I made it with the date paste versus the brown sugar and the other sugars. And it actually was really good. It was almost like, pumpkin cake with like a pumpkin pudding because all the flavorings and stuff go to the bottom. So you just have this really ooey gooey cake. All right, so I'm gonna eyeball it. You can do the cup. You can actually heat up the soy milk, almond milk, hemp milk, whatever you decide that you want to use. Because I just do it so much, I just eyeball it. Let me plug in. Oh my goodness, I can smell the. Okay, so there you go. All of us. At least it wasn't a blender without the lid off. Scared me to death. But I was going to say the smell of this is like you can smell the jalapeno and the ketchup and everything else. It smells really good. And if you didn't want ketchup, you could also use tomato sauce too. That would be another way to do it. But the ketchup actually adds a little bit of the sweetness. All right, so start them up. Voila. All right, let me unplug this and throw it over. Oh my gosh, that's sauce. Oh. Want your house to smell like kind of like jalapeno type. That's really good. So there are the mashed potatoes all mixed up. So just with the soy milk, you could add, if you wanted to make them garlic, which would be really good on the Thanksgiving loaf, you just add some garlic, like garlic powder, or you could do, just regular salt and pepper. Like I said, I'm going to leave it pretty much plain right now. The reason why I was with it because I'm going to add a lot of other stuff onto it. So nice and creamy. And I always like to just make sure it's real creamy. Perfect. And the good thing is Jerry likes this because tomorrow, even though I'm going to stack it tonight, Jerry tomorrow is going to be like, "Ooh, I have mashed potatoes."
Yeah.
All right, so let me put these off to the side.
Somebody wants the recipe.
Okay. Ooey gooey cake. That is actually a good question. That is actually going to be the next class. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have pumpkin brulee, ooey gooey pecan pumpkin cake, which is out of this world. Jerry is not big on sweets and stuff, but he ate pretty much 3/4, almost the whole thing, because it made it about this big. And then I'm going to be doing just a regular pumpkin cake. So those are the 3 recipes that we're going to do the next class. If you need it sooner because you're leaving or something like that, just email me at Kelley at plantbasedkitchen, all one word together.com, and I will send that over to you.
The email right there.
Yeah, the email's on the chat too at the very, very top. Let's see what my time is. I'm pretty good. I try to get the cranberries going here. The gravy we're going to make is very easy to make. Just making sure it doesn't bubble. I also did the caramelized onions last night, so that's another thing that you can do, because I figured you probably didn't want to watch for 20 minutes while we were sauteing onions. So I'm going to get a bigger lid. The lids are outside, but I'm going to grab a lid just to keep it from going everywhere. Oh, that sounds good. It's like kind of spicy, smoky, really good. All right, so the caramelized onions, like I said, I did last night. This was a half of an onion. So all I did was just put them in the pan. I have to keep watching. It's like I need a setting between medium, low, and medium, so it keeps going. But I think this will be good. So I just put them in a pan, sliced them. Of course, did slice them up, put them in with some vegetable broth or vegetable stock. You definitely need to use vegetable broth or stock. And then I just let them just simmer. And I just let them keep simmering and simmering and simmering to where they turn this nice yellow color. And then you've got your caramelized onions. So you could do these ahead of time too, and then just put them in the pan like a day or two, and then just put them in a pan and heat them up. And then they're ready to go. Because this is your topping. Like that. I've got it's popping all over the place. I'm gonna go back down on medium low. It's messy. I'll just see if I can find one smaller lid. I know I have a smaller lid, but I don't know where it's at. Okay, we'll keep watching it. We'll make a mess. How's that? All right. I just want to get the cranberries. So when your cranberries are starting to cook, the next thing, because once they cook for just a few minutes, take your spoon and smash them against the side, and then they break down really quick. Otherwise, you could be sitting here for quite a while before they break down because of the boiling of the simmering. So just kind of get in there a little bit, smash, smash. It smells so good. And then you can do a little smash on your jalapeno because you get a little bit of that flavoring. If you don't want anything that's like the jalapeno, then just leave it out. Okay, let that go for just a few minutes. I want to grab really quick. I'm going to do the hot pads. I want to check the sweet potatoes. That lid's for Jerry to clean up.
Yeah.
All right, so grab those. You want to just stir them up. If for some reason your liquid is coming out, like if there's not much liquid, then just add some vegetable broth. Just keep stirring it so you get all that goodness in there. And I'm going to add just a little bit of vegetable broth. And I'm going to throw them back in. I'm going to pull one out just to see. About another 5 minutes or so. I'm going to pull the meatloaf because I'm going to put the sauce on it. Let me just get the rest of the cranberries. And the one thing too is if you really like jalapenos, I would just take the jalapeno and put it off to the side, and then you get this roasted jalapeno that you could actually slice up. You know, looking like Mexican food where you can get roasted jalapenos. Then you could do that, and then you have no waste, and you're not throwing away your jalapeno. All right. Whew. Every once in a while, you get the whiff of the jalapeno. It's potent. All right, so I'm going to pull. Actually, Jerry likes jalapenos. There we go. All right, so there is the chunky sauce. You can, if you could smell, if you had like smell-o-vision is what Emerald used to say, you could smell like the jalapeno and everything else. Whew. I notice my potatoes taste watery when I cut them before boiling them. Do you know why? My potatoes taste watery when I cut them before boiling them. Huh. I've never had that problem. I wonder, are you using russet potatoes? So just dump it on the top like this, smooth it over the
She
side.
said yes.
Using russet potatoes, but they taste watery. So is it before you're making mashed potatoes and they taste watery? So just trying to figure out a little bit.
Red potatoes.
Actually, red potatoes, yes, I would agree with that. They are, when you slice them up and you're boiling them, especially, I will notice the same thing, that they taste watery and they don't taste as I guess as robust as you want. Just want that stick. Otherwise, Jerry would have to clean that pan too. But there it is. Let me do this real quick. But yeah, red potatoes, I've noticed that you usually want to boil them whole and then smash them up, and that makes better potatoes. So there it is. I'm going to put it in the oven because the meatloaf was pretty much already browned up. Let me get that going. Because I want to be able to plate it for you. And I have cranberry sauce everywhere. All right. Now let's get the gravy because everything else is going to be ready here in just a minute. I'm not saying I'm the neatest in the world. Good at cleanup though. All right, so your gravy. So this is the easiest gravy ever. And it tastes really good. This is another one, if you like mushrooms, slice up mushroom slices and put it in here. All right, so if you're following there, see in a small saucepan, we've got vegetable broth. Make as much or as little as you like. I just needed a little bit for this demo. And then then I'm going to whisk in the flour. So I've got my little whisk. So I just add a little bit at a time and then just keep whisking.
Brown rice flour.
Do what?
Brown rice flour.
You could actually, this is actually just a light white, it's a white whole wheat flour, but yes, you could do brown rice flour. Some people I know don't prefer brown rice flour because of the taste. It tastes a little bit different. So I just use the white wheat flour. So a little bit at a time, keep whisking. You could actually, like my mom used to do, you could put this in a mason jar. So you could put the vegetable broth and the flour in there and then shake it up and then add it all in there too. My mom used to do that. She'd always kept a mason jar and she'd be like, shake, 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 and then she'd make her gravy. You put that in there, like that. Then your spices, so onion powder, thyme, and oregano. And you could actually add, fresh spices if you want to, but these are all just regular dried spices. That's all you need to add with that. Whisk that in. And then you're going to let it start bubbling up. All right, you check my sweet potatoes. Move some things over so we can get everything all nice and ready. When I opened the oven, the jalapeno cranberry sauce was like, whew, made my eyes water a little bit. I'm gonna let them set just a little bit, but just mix them up because every once in a while you'll see like a little dried spot on your sweet potatoes because maybe it didn't get as much sauce. So just kind of, just mix them up. There we go. Okay. There is, so it's more like a white gravy, but there is the gravy done that quick. So when you're trying it out, of course, do a little taste with it. Check your spice level. Doesn't need salt or anything. It's really good, just the way it is. But if you want it, saltier or anything like that, then just mix it up. So that's ready. All right. Got my mashed potatoes ready. Let me pull those over. So I've got mashed potatoes. Let me show you the sweet potatoes. I know I had another, oh, it's underneath. That way you can see them. They're not done yet, but they're all cooked, all nice and roasted and sweet and wonderful. There's extra sauce that's on the bottom. If the gravy becomes a little too thick, like if it's sitting here and you're getting it ready and you're putting it on the table, just add a little bit extra broth. And if it's too thin, add a little bit more of the flour. I want it to be able to drizzle, so that is good. All right, let me check the meatloaf. We got about 2 minutes to plate. Oh my gosh. There's the meatloaf. It smells so good. All right, let me pull this out. Swim up that can. So normally, of course, you let this set 10-15 minutes because you want to be able to cut it up. So hopefully it'll come off really easy when I'm doing this. Just get a regular knife. I am going to grab the biggest edge. Spoon. Can't do anything left-handed. There we go. Spoon. All right. So then and you could do it this side. You could put all the sauce down. You could actually show the meatloaf on the top, however you want to do that. Just slide that out nice and easy. Look at all this great sauce. You could even actually make it even a bigger piece if you wanted to. All right, and then you've got the mashed potatoes. So I'm just going to grab just a nice ice cream scoop. Which makes it pretty. Like that. You could also get a couple spoons, put the spoons together like that. All right, then I've got the caramelized onions. Actually, I'm going to do the gravy first. Need to thicken it or unthicken it a little bit. A little bit more. It thickens up really quick. So just like I said, before you get ready to serve it, just kind of add a little bit of vegetable broth to it, and it does really well. All right, grab big spoon. Don't melt. And since I'm going to take a picture, I'll just add a little bit more. You could also add the gravy on the bottom. It's up to you. All right, then I've got my caramelized onions that I heated back up earlier. Kind of let those drip down to the side like that. And then I've got scallions. So I cut up some scallions. You could do chives, you could do parsley. And then, so that's what that looks like. But then I'm going to add the sweet potatoes. Doesn't that look good? Yeah, yum. This is Jerry's dinner. Mm-hmm. But usually I always say by the time we hit Thanksgiving, we're always kind of like, okay, we've had like 6 or 7 Thanksgivings. So I'm going to take half of these here, leave them half, and these half here. I'm going to put toasted sesame seeds. Do the white ones. I just toasted them on a baking sheet, 350, about 5-6 minutes. Of course, you want to watch them and make sure because they burn really quick. They go from white sesame seeds to black sesame seeds really quick. And then I've got black sesame seeds because they just add beauty. So I have a little bit there, and then I'm going to plate it. Making sure I'm not. All All right, and then when they're on the plate again too, just add a few more sesame seeds just for pretty. Add some black ones. And you could also add some scallions on it if you wanted to, but there you go. Thanksgiving feast on a plate that tastes absolutely delicious. All ready to go. And then if you wanted to add some side dishes, some other vegetables, green beans, all that. Now that is something that I guarantee you, who needs turkey or ham or anything else? This is delicious. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy. Manja manja, eat. Jerry's sitting here and I can see drool coming down the side of his face. He's like looking at this like this is delicious. But like I said, if you want the regular meatloaf recipe, let me know. If you're looking for anything else or double the recipe, let me know. I'm happy to help out in any way. And then if you stay tuned for 2 weeks, that's when all the desserts come up. So you can make all kinds of delicious desserts because there's nothing better than Thanksgiving than having lots of good desserts after you eat all this hearty food. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will say good night. Love you guys. Big kisses, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.